welcome back to our second edition of Why Religion. Now, if you missed our first episode, I'll put a link in the description below and give a little background as to why this series and, little exercises to help the mind start moving a little bit. Now, I never really thought I'd be making videos, but then again, I never thought there'd be a pandemic or me being a deacon. So just in those couple of things, there's so much there just to think about. And that is really the whole concept of why we ask to think about your name, yourself, and what other thinks about you. That's really almost a reality check to some extent. We go through life not really thinking about anything too much, and something comes along and poof, let's explore that. So I ask a silly question about what your name means, and it gets us to think about it. Who knows what their name means? I had an idea from reading baby name books years ago that David meant beloved. But what does that mean? And how does it apply to my life? Who beloves me? Now, one question leads to another, and now instead of egotistically determining just how great each of us are, we're looking a bit deeper into the actual person. Not so scary, really. Yeah, there are things we don't like about it, and it is very easy to get stuck right there. But there is quite a bit that we like, right? And that's good. So these questions, each of us are sort of given a start back in school, but we push it to the side fairly quickly with learning about college, workplaces, and home. And today's society doesn't give us much time for self-contemplation at all. But we really should stop and realize these questions. The questions we're asking are just a continuation of questions we have been asking all of our lives. Now, if you've had a child around for any length of time, we've all heard that question. What's that? Now, once we're able to communicate it, it seems a natural thing to learn and to continue to learn. So, in my hand, a cup of coffee. At least that's what I'm going to say it is. There was a time when none of us knew what that was. Now, there was a time when we had no clue what it tasted like, no clue what it smelled like, etc. And there was a time we slept 18 hours a day even. But just imagine how we go about learning something like that. Now, our parents probably drank coffee, and we have seen it all of our lives. We've probably known its smell since the time we were born. At first, we had our senses, so we smelled it, and perhaps we associated with that percolator sound of our youth. We could see it. We didn't taste it or feel it yet. Now, somewhere along the line, we heard Mom and Dad talk about this coffee thing. And eventually, we learned to associate the hot brown liquid in the carafe as coffee. That's basically one of the ways we learn. One example of one way in which we learn. My purpose is not to teach in detail how we learn. It's not my specialty, but it's one of the ways in which we learn things. So, coffee, good stuff. But that is the beginning of our learning. Even before we're able to communicate, we're able to make connections. Our first connection we make is probably your mom and dad. And that goes from there. We hear Mom's voice as we're even in the womb. We hear her breathing, her heartbeat, etc. We literally know Mom on the inside and the out. Even in utero, we are learning. It is what we do. We experience our world around us and we make connections. So, when we're out in the world, we continue to make these connections. Informally, we learn about coffee. Formally, we learn about mathematics. When we can't make the connections, though, we need help. And then we ask that famous question, what's that? And then it dreaded, what's it do? And finally, why? You know, and then let's let the games begin. Every mother and father has played this game until it hurts. But it's how we learn. Actual interactions, actual questions. Now, eventually we're able to put a little more polish to it, and we learn to temper our questions based on positive and negative feedback. But we get those feedbacks and reinforcements over the years. Eventually we pop out of the educational system, fully prepared to take on life. Except we avoid the big questions. Deep in our very existence, we recognize that we are more than just a body. We realize there is more to life than just me, my dad, mom, and a few friends. It's our common core, so to speak, that all of us human beings look up and see more than just the earth. To some extent, we can call on science to answer many of these questions, but eventually we do have to ask, who am I? Where did I come from? A nice pat answer, of course, is you came from the joining of sperm and ovum, and you came from there. There's a calling much deeper than that. We all feel that. Be honest. And some put it away and compartmentalize it and never touch it again. Others take this and put it out there for the whole world, trying to find the answer, sometimes going off the deep end with it. So we feel this internal desire to know the truth. We're constantly struggling to bring ourselves closer to the truth. And this is a major struggle that we have today, as some claim that there is no truth. This is wrong. There is a truth, and not searching for it frustrates our most inner being. We push this feeling away, and we feel more and more stressed. We constantly look for distractions and other things to do because we have fallen for that lie. Now, sports have always been on our human minds, but each week it seems to become a larger and larger display. The fanfare, the eye candy comes up on our screen, pulling us away from our desire for knowing our purpose. Distractions. Then along comes this pandemic. And now we're forced to be in our homes without distractions. Now the politicians try to distract us with their sport, but it really means nothing any more than the normal sports do. We're forced to bring that into our lives. Hence, 4 months later, we're in daze trying to figure out what happened. Something has changed. Now we've all had that reset, and we heard that little niggling voice in our heads saying, who are you? Where are you going? And we're all struggling with that question. Depending on how much practice you've had with the questions, it may scare you, it may not. But really, there is nothing to be scared of. It's just an exercise to find the truth. That's our goal. That's the subject of philosophy. And for some, that will lead to religion. And we all have that philosophy, though. Some of the philosophy is culturally driven, others is taught. Much of it is sought out and learned through one of the questions we asked as a child. What is that? Now, the title of the series is called Why Religion? So I do want to veer down that road. The various philosophies that make up our history and our current lives play a role, and they raise their heads. We'll speak about them. Obviously, Plato, Aristotle have had a large influence on the world and views and thoughts, but also the impact of our world of the Eastern thinkers. Confucius is well known and a great influence, also Lao Tzu. Others as well. So, as one reads through the later writings, we can see the impact each of these have had. St. Thomas Merton's synthesis of his Catholic faith with the Eastern thought. So all of these influencers of philosophies know the works of the others, because the goal for all of them is to find the truth. For most of us, what is philosophy versus what is religion? The lines can certainly blur. It's quite ironic that some atheists hold the reliance on science so highly that indeed one could almost call them the religion of scientism. But hold that there is no creator. But hold that the greatest power there is the universe. That which is the greatest force in the universe is really God. Whatever you think it is. One can see some of the philosophical thought happening and viewpoints in life in their statements. Nothing is more powerful than science in our world. This is an Enlightenment view. Other groups would say that the Tao is most powerful and most important. Probably the vast majority of us watching will agree that God is the most important and most powerful. Within that group is Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. But I guess we should start with religion. Now here is a definition, secular definition of religion. Religion is the belief and or worship of a superhuman controlling power, especially a personal god or gods. Well, this is an example of why religion has no one looking at it. This sounds to me like Superman or Batman or something along those lines. Not to mention, it eliminates many actual religions. Catholics do not worship a controlling power. Catholics believe in freedom. Some Christian denominations might fit into this if they're doing nothing on their own and allow God to be taking care of everything. But no one worships something that controls you. Islam would find this offensive because even to submit is a personal choice. But that's a definition with which the secular powers have deigned to give religion. That's what's being taught. It's about this superhuman person who controls everything that happens. That would really leave out a deist or a Buddhist completely. So I think we need a new way of thinking. But the focus on the word religion is tough. I spent a good hour looking at various definitions, and most of these spoke about a specific group. Trying to pull out into a definition a religion in general just seems very, very difficult. I think because it tries to pull everyone in and try to fit in a definition that pulls in both Western religions, Eastern religions, Northern, Southern. It's just going to be tough. One being exterior, some being interior, etc. The scope is just vast. So to try to do a general definition is going to be problematic. And I think that's the problem. The definitions that they give, it's hard to be sure everyone is covered. And by trying to get everyone covered, that definition makes it almost meaningless. So perhaps it might be better to look at what the goal of a specific religion is. Perhaps we can join into a much more meaningful dialogue that way. If we look toward ourselves, such as Taoism or Buddhism, we can look outside of ourselves in Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and we might be tempted to look at Eastern culture versus Western culture. But there's far too much overlap for that to be a factor. Now, Christianity, Buddhism, etc. have spread throughout the world. It is greater than just culture. It is a search for truth. And the truth about the very great and the very small, the universe and the smallest part of the atoms, and a truth about each of us and our purpose. The questions haven't changed. We just have gotten much better at distracting ourselves. And the question that should be asked, though, is what are these specific religions trying to do? at their basis, it's who am I? Where am I going? Where did I come from? Now, I'm going to look at this obviously from a Christian view. That's what I am. And that's what the vast majority of people are that have a chance of seeing this are. Again, we'll move into other things, but again, as I mentioned, the vast majority of you are from the western suburbs of Chicago. But even if you're not Christian, to explore these questions will open yourselves up to higher levels of thinking than just a sports team, politician, or just going through the motions. So let us take a look at our own goals. Short-term, long-term. How are the kids doing? Are they what you expected 20 years ago or so? Where are you intellectually? Where do you think you want to go there? Now, where are you on your spiritual journey? Given up completely? I don't think so, because you wouldn't be watching this. But what ideas come to mind when you think about where you came from? And where are you going? Is there an afterlife, as most religions point to? What does your religion say on the subject? Now, our life as both spirit and nature. We run the gamut from birth to death, natural and supernatural. We are definitely thinking, loving, naturally curious beings. We are building here and now that we actually broach this topic of religion. We can take some examples of religious thought. And we can look at a few that speak of the religions themselves. Who is the founder? What are the sources? And what is the living actions? And what are their goals? That pretty much takes us from the beginning to the end. But then the question is, what then? So, let's continue our exploration in our next episode. Thanks a lot. God bless.